Hi, Jill back again. Um, I decided to do a part two to the Breonna Taylor video, especially since I shot that one. It was August 8th of this year, so it's it's been a minute. I'm not cooking anything. Even in the last one, I just cooked tacos, which is something simple because it's such a complex case. So I'm in the comfort of my bed. Because a bed's someplace you're supposed to be safe. They teach you that as a child. If you're under the covers, the monsters can't get you. But then, sometimes the monsters come and beat on your door at 1 o'clock in the morning and shoot you. Um, so if you didn't watch the first video, go back and watch it. It's got some basic information in it about who Brianna was, what happened, all things like that. What I'm gonna do now is I finished the blog post. I went in and wrote it all up, but some things have happened since then. Some very important things, so I wanted to do it to part two and just kind of go through and cover those. So if you're just a little refresher on the case, Breonna Taylor was 26, EMT, had dreams of becoming a nurse. On March 13th, three plainclothes police officers came banging on her door at 3 in the morning, waking her and her boyfriend Kenneth Walker up. They asked who it was. No one responded. The police claimed they said, "Hey, it's the police. Open up." Um, Kenneth and Brianna got up, walked down the hallway. When the door busted open, Kenneth shot at the floor, which I didn't include in the last video. He shot at the floor, which one of the bullets hit Jonathan Matley, was one of the officers. So they proceeded to shoot into the apartment. As I did say in the last video, one of the officers claimed he just emptied his gun. 8 shots. Shot Brianna, and she died in the hallway. So I've done more research, and I've been doing this over and over. I feel like I've went through and edited this post like 20 times. Just were some things that have happened after it. So the whole reason they were supposed to come in there is they had a no-knock warrant, which is a warrant that, they don't have to actually knock. They can just break and come into your home, which I get. I still don't understand why it was done after midnight. I guess the element of surprise. But the whole reason they did it is because Brianna's name was in relation to her ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover, for sale, they had been watching for selling controlled substances. And they claimed that she had been getting packages for him there. I never heard that they found any of the packages to do with that. And when they ultimately did clean the apartment and go through it, there were no drugs found. So a couple of things that have happened since then. The no-knock warrant, I've heard different accounts of this, so it's not sure. Was it legal? Wasn't it? I do think at this point they've determined it was legally signed by a judge. But they have created a law, Brianna's law, where they don't do no knock warrants anymore, which is good. I mean, her ex-boyfriend, I've seen a couple accounts, like I said, that he was in custody at the time, that he had arrested 2 hours earlier or 2 hours after. Since then, he has been arrested and is being charged with, I don't even know what. But there has been accounts that they have been trying to offer him a deal if he will name Brianna as a conspirator as part of this. Basically trying to save their own asses, which is really disheartening that they still can't own up to this. Like, you guys murdered someone, even if it was an accident, you still murdered someone, in a brutal way, that they're still just trying to cover their asses, so it's a little disheartening. Where I'm just trying to go through this. I've also heard another account that Brianna was shot with 6 bullets instead of 8. But ballistics did determine that the bullet that killed her did come from Officer Cosgrove. They did determine that. Also, the blank police report, there were no injuries. And it did say that they didn't force their way into the apartment when they used a battering ram to break the door open. Also, there was no body cam footage, but there was some recordings of the radio calls. I also did see an account where there was an ambulance on standby, and then it left before the incident, but then came back, and Officer Matley, they were more concerned about him than someone that they had just shot. Also, ballistics did determine that the bullet that shot Matley, they're not entirely sure came from Walker, Breonna's boyfriend. They said they couldn't determine it. I don't know who it would have come from, though, since that's the whole reason they shot, was because someone had shot first. Kenneth did shoot at the floor, though, so it's possible it could have ricocheted and done that. So, a few things else that have happened since after the murder. Like I said, the city banned no-knock warrants. That was on June 11th. One of the officers, Brett Hankins, was fired, and the other officers involved in the case have been on an administrative reassignment. None of them have actually been charged. Well, that's a lot they have at this point. Louisville officials agreed to pay $12 million to settle a wrongful death lawsuit brought on by Breonna's mother, and to institute and reform aimed at preventing future deaths by officers, which is good. It still doesn't bring her back. On September 23rd, a Kentucky grand jury did indict Hankins on 3 counts of endangerment. However, the charges stem from the bullets that penetrated the wall of the residence and entered into the neighboring apartments. None of those are for who killed her. So Hankins has been indicted, but solely based on the walls of the apartment, because they could have killed other people. So Breonna's neighbors and the walls of the apartment got justice before she did. So that's nice. You're going to be indicted on shooting the walls and maybe injuring other people, but not the one that's actually dead. It makes no sense. And then Sergeant Matley, the one who was shot, did file a lawsuit against Kenneth Walker, Breonna's boyfriend, for compensation damages due to medical treatment, trauma, and physical pain and mental distress from the stuff he experienced that night. But, like, you guys broke into their house, in their home. He was defending his girlfriend. And like I said, the ballistics report from that night says it's even unclear if the bullet that hit him was Kenneth's, which, if that's the case, that means that the moment they busted in the door, they started shooting. Well, I guess that does make sense, since the moment the door busted open, Kenneth did shoot. But basically, they can't determine if it was that shot that Kenneth shot at the floor that ricocheted off something and hit Matley, or if it was one of the other bullets that the 3 of them shot into the apartment, ricocheting off and shooting back at him. So, in theory, he could have actually shot himself. Because either way, I don't understand it. And then the Attorney General, Cameron, who is an absolute... Somebody get him out of there. Did not even give the jury the option of murder charges against the officers involved, because he didn't think the charge would actually stick. So, that's just some of the updates that have happened since I filmed this episode, which is weird because that was, like I said, in August. So August, September, October, November, 4 months. This is what's happened in 4 months. And basically I don't think anything else is going to come up the case, unfortunately. I do think that it could have been done better. If they properly knocked and announced themselves, I think it could have prevented all of this from happening. It's weird to think that just giving a common courtesy like that could have made a world of difference. Breonna could still be alive. All these officers could still have their job. And it just, I just don't get it. Because if then there's also recordings of this that have been released. I've not listened to them personally. I can't bring myself to do it. From things that I've read, I have heard that they all kind of have a different account. It's a little different than from the others, but still, it doesn't justify that a young woman was murdered. And I doubt she'll ever get true justice for that. But it did bring light to some things to make, I guess, us more aware of what's actually happening. Because sometimes you're a little colorblind to things. I know I've been with things. Sometimes you just don't want to think the worst about someone who's supposed to serve and protect you. And it's a sad world. I still can't wrap my head around how this happened. I can't wrap my head around how most people of color have been murdered this year. And I may cover. There are two I have in mind that I do want to cover. Because I don't understand how it happened to them too. And I think that some police officers think that they're trying to get their big bust, which is fine. You should want to take criminals off the street. But some of the murders that have happened this year that's not the case. And regardless of anything, depending on who it was, because I know it gets a lot of shit, especially the stuff that came out about George Floyd, but it doesn't mean that he deserved to be, murdered in public. No one deserves that. I think all of these can be handled better. And I know a lot of the defunding the police movement isn't actually defunding the police. It's taking funds and kind of deferring them elsewhere to where things can be handled properly. Oh, my ring light is dying. But I just wanted to do a little follow-up after this one. So this is going to be part 2. I'm going to post the first one, and then post this one right after it. So this is going to be a 2-part. And there will be a blog post with references afterwards. I did also include the petition for Breonna at the end of it. Hopefully, my incoherent ramblings make sense. And I feel better in processing my own thoughts. It doesn't do anything for anybody. It doesn't make this okay. It doesn't bring anybody back. But sometimes it's good to talk about things that are scary. Especially if it helps bring awareness. Because sadly, some people would rather listen to some white lady speak than anybody else. When half the time I'm an imbecile and don't know what I'm saying. But comments are appreciated on this. If there's a case you want me to cover, food you want me to make, just let me know. But stay safe, guys. Bye.